You want to, you're good?
I am good.
All right, thanks. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this information session this evening. I'm Kim Wingrove, the CAO of Grey County, and joining me on this call is Chief Anaquat of the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. Say hello, sir, if you would.
Oh, hi everyone.
And also Chief Najawan from the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. Chief Najawan?
Bonjour, honey.
And together, the two First Nations form the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, or San. And the purpose of this meeting is to provide a bit of background on the transfer of the Mountain Lake Forest property to San, and to hear from Chief Anaquat and Chief Najawan, and to take any questions that anyone on the call would like to ask. We've had some questions submitted in advance, but if you on the call would like to ask a question, you can enter it into the Q&A section of your Zoom window, and this will allow us to track the questions as they come in. For those of you watching online or watching a recording of tonight's information session, if you have a question that we don't address tonight, you can email it to communications@grey.ca. We'll do our best to respond to your questions as quickly as we can. So I'll get things started tonight by briefly summarizing a few points about the Mountain Lake property. Mountain Lake is 290 acres. It was acquired by Grey County with support from the Ministry of Natural Resources. Ecologically, the property has some very important features. It's within the Mountain Lake Fen, which is a provincially significant life science area of natural and scientific information. Some of you would know that as an ANSI. And includes a portion of the Mountain Lake Skinner's Marsh, which is a provincially significant wetland. Under the county's official plan, the lands are designated as rural, hazard, and provincially significant wetland. Each one of these designations comes with defined policies about whether site alteration is permitted and whether there are and where any development can occur. In addition, Georgian Bluffs also has zoning over the property as environmental protection and open space. Although the ownership of the property has changed with the transfer, it will continue to be subject to all regular land use planning policies and procedures. In the future, should there be cutting or removal of trees, that will be done in accordance with the county's forest management bylaw. This transfer of property is part of settling Grey County's portion of a claim launched over 25 years ago. Grey County is proud to have settled with San and to be moving forward positively and in a spirit of reconciliation. I'm glad that you're joining us on this call tonight, and I'd like to now invite our two First Nations representatives to speak. And you may go, whichever one of you wishes to go first. Perhaps Chief Najawan, would you begin, or Chief Anaquat?
I'll allow Chief Najawan to go.
So good evening, and yes, I believe you summed it up when we had met, and we had met a few times before we got down to the brass tacks, or the meat and potatoes, I guess. And we were looking towards the spirit of cooperation in the spirit of reconciliation. I guess it's one step, and it's probably the first step regarding our land claims towards a fair and reasonable settlement. And I know this is relinquishes the county of having to be involved in the litigation, but I've always felt that it's more beneficial in a win-win situation when you enter into a negotiated settlement. And even in negotiation, there has to be a give and take, and I believe we've managed to stick handle through all the different issues and score with a good result, a good resolution. And I'm quite happy with it. And it did get loud for a little bit because of the misunderstanding of what exactly this settlement entailed in the overall land claims. Like I was shocked when I heard that some of the membership thought that this was a part of the bigger uh, picture that's going through the court process right now. So without saying any more, and I believe anytime a wrong is righted or a miscarriage of justice is resolved, that the ability to work together and becomes all that more easier. Uh, it establishes the foundation of trust and willingness, and then they're essential in any partnership, relationship building. So I commend the county on their participation, and I will now turn it over to Chief Onquit.
Thanks, Chief Nadjuan.
Ani Bajo. Ogama Onquit doesn't cause. Yes, it certainly has taken a long journey to get us where we find ourselves today, but on the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I believe that we're heading in the right direction. I commend the County of Grey with their efforts and coming up with a settlement, a mediated settlement with Son. And as Chief had to reiterate the fact that a win-win for us is just that, and it's refreshing to see that it's not an us and them scenario, but a collective to get us to where we are today. And that spirit of cooperation, I believe, is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to other areas that we're working on in the territory. We've had some positive results with other municipalities, and we're working with Bruce County at the moment. So I've had mayors reach out to me as well, and just to reiterate the fact that we're not after third-party property. It's all basically public lands and lands that the government had that we had surrendered but not had been sold or compensated for. So that's the issue basically, and I commend the County of Grey for taking that first step forward, as there are 2 counties within the territory. And yes, I'm in the spirit of cooperation. I'm looking forward to continuing to work. Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you both so much. I wonder, it might be interesting to people on the call. Do you have any plans for the property? What does the property mean to you and to your people?
Well, before we came on the air, I spoke to you that I have taken the time to go to the property and not do a thorough walkthrough, but it establishes our connection, I guess, to the lands, and we're trying to move forward to be allowed to be participants in our territory, and because of through no fault of anyone's, we've had a lot of restrictions put on us as Indigenous people of the land, and at times I coined it actually started feeling like thieves in our own land. The laws and the heavy-handedness, I guess, of others through the years, and we've managed to work hard to educate ourselves on the issues. I personally have read most of the histories that are available on the different townships, and feel that it would be in the best interest of everyone in the territory to have our history as part of the curriculum
Mm.
in the school systems. I'm talking public and secondary and post-secondary. I think that would do so much to resolve. But what this land means is the start of us being recognized, being front and center in our own territory. 1854, the Treaty 72, that's, we're only a few years out of it, the 200th anniversary, and it's
Yeah.
taken this long to make these small gains, which we hope will eventually become larger gains. So, but the land means a lot. We are people of the land and the water. So it's welcome breath of fresh air.
Thank you. Chief Anaquat, do you have anything to add?
Well, the connection to the land and the water is a spiritual connection that we hold near and dear to our hearts. I mean, traditionally, the territory that we live in is where we're from and where we reside. So, as others, move in and out of the territory, we're basically here because this is where we're from. So, so keeping that connection to the land and the water is near and dear to us. So that's it's very well in keeping with culture. So I'm quite happy that we have that connection back.
Yeah, good. All right. I don't have any more prepared remarks, and if you gentlemen are okay, we can see if there's any questions from anybody who's looking in on the meeting.
I haven't seen any come through yet, Kim, but if
Okay.
anyone watching on YouTube, if anything comes to mind, you can email it to communications@grey.ca. For now, Kim, how about we start with a couple of the ones we received in advance?
Sure. There was a question about the trail that runs or has run through the property, and so I can tell anyone listening that from the county's perspective, that trail is no longer in operation. So we've removed reference to it from our website and from any documentation. But there may still be things that were printed in the past that make reference to it. That the Mountain Lake property is private now and will be treated as private property, and it will be up to SON to take whatever action they feel appropriate regarding people using this land for recreation. And so again, from our chiefs, if you have any further comments on that question, and perhaps it hasn't come up to you yet, but do you have anything to add on the trail or the recreational use piece?
I'd just like to make reference to a farmer trail.
Yes.
From Brook to Colpoys Bay Range. And it was denoted on the maps as the Indian Trail. And I do believe it skirted Mountain Lake. We're talking 150 years in the past, but it had been utilized for a long time. It's become grown over. But I did have a friend 30 years ago who tried his hardest to see if he could trace that that trail. But and I do know you're not talking about that trail. You're talking about the trail. But yeah, and that's another.
But there's a lot of history in the trails.
Historical significance, yes.
Okay, all right. I had another question come in asking about surveying and whether there would be any surveying done. I'm concerned about my property boundaries. And so to that person, I would say that the property transfer is now complete, was completed in September. And because there were never any alterations to the property boundaries from the time that Gray entered into an agreement with the Ministry of Natural Resources until this point in time in this transfer, we didn't survey because there wasn't anything to confirm. There had been no changes to the property boundary. So I think our suggestion to folks would be if you have concerns as an abutting landowner, that it would be up to you to confirm your own property boundaries should you be looking at doing some real estate transaction in the future. There was a question about any plans for hunting or fishing on the property. And again, it may be too soon for you gentlemen to speak to that.
Well, hunting and fishing has always been a aspect of who we are, so I think it answers itself.
Yes.
I mean, not only in just because we've acquired this acreage here, but I mean we have access to crown lands and you know, land that are held in, by others, and I
Yes.
mean it's the way it is. I mean,
Yes.
do we have intentions of decimating a population of animals or fish species?
No.
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 We're very, very aware that they have to be maintained as sustainable.
Of course. Anything from you, Chief Anaquat, on that? From that?
We, the Environment Office will have a laundry list of items that need to be taken care of after this transfer. And you know, the hunting and fishing is an inherent right. So I mean,
Yes.
it's not really a huge issue, I guess, for us. If we intended to hunt or fish, I mean, it would certainly be within the territory. But as far as what to do with the property, it's pretty early at this
Yeah.
to decide. But you know, keeping nature's beauty the way it is always a good path forward without a plan. So
Right.
I would be
Okay.
to just see things the way they are for the time being, unless there was some huge aspirations for the property. But yes, the inherency of the right to hunt and fish would probably be exercised. But I don't think you would see a huge footprint at any juncture, though.
Okay. Thank you for that. Someone asked if there was a contact, if they had a question or concern about something that they observed. Is there a place that you would like people to contact to make you aware of something was happening?
Well, we flow most concerns and questions of that nature through our environmental office, and there's a contact person there. Catherine Ryan is the manager of that office. We also have our own communications that set up at NAWASH. So there's probably a couple of avenues to voice concerns or share information.
Could people find that a contact from Googling it, the Environment Office for Son? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Ojibwenation.ca.
Okay, perfect. All right. And we'll make sure that Georgian Bluffs has that information as well if people end up coming to them rather than to yourselves directly. Someone asked why there was no public consultation before the land was transferred. And to that questioner, I would say this was a legal matter before the courts. And like all settlement negotiations, it's required to be confidential. There was a lot of consideration and due diligence that went into this. I think on both sides, as you've mentioned, but certainly by Grey County Council. And all of this was done in a spirit of reconciliation. So I hope that people can feel like this was the best outcome for everyone. Those are the questions that I had. And if there's nothing more, Rob, from anyone on the call.
I did receive one, yes, and I think it does
Okay.
go back to the first question there, and this is from a resident on Linwood Road, which is adjacent to the property there, and they did used to walk through the Grey County Forest prior to the transfer, and they were just wondering what happens to those permissions now. So I was just hoping we could make that clear at this time, Kim.
Okay. So again, gentlemen, this is your private property now. Do you intend to take a decision at some point, or has that decision been made that you're not looking to have people walking on the property?
Well, I think we we have to be very reasonable here. I will speak for Nawash. We have a large chunk of the Bruce Trail that goes through our backyards, and we just ask people to be reasonable and safe, and leave it in pristine condition. We work with the Niagara Escarpment Commission and others. We have pristine bays that we allow others. We're not a nation that puts up walls. That's the nation is south of us.
Oh, I'm sure people will be very glad to hear that if they can use the property respectfully, that you'll continue to allow the local people to walk on it.
We have restrictions that we put on the Bruce Trail, and for instance, during COVID, we had contacted the Bruce Trail advisors, and we had put absolutely no use of the trail during the COVID. And I would say for the most part, the regulations were adhered to. There's always one or two that like to push the envelope, but no, we're, and I'm not saying that there won't be any restrictions in the future, but.
Of course. Okay, well, thank you for that. Thank you. Anything else, Rob?
That's all I have received through email. But again, to anyone listening, if something comes to you after, you can email it to communications@grey.ca, and I'll make sure that we do respond to you as soon as we can.
And as well, you heard the address to come in contact with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and I'm sure you could direct questions to them directly as well. And yeah, we'll share information as best we can through all of us going forward. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. And to everyone who joined in on the call, thank you. I hope you found this information to be helpful to you.
Well, thank you, Kim and Rob, and it was a nice participating. And
thank you.
And Chief Onnequit.
Yes.
Course.
Oh, you're muted.
Thanks very much for the invite.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly gives us an opportunity to dialogue. And if any inquiries want to come to Saugeen First Nation, we're at, well, my email is lester.anaquat@Saugeen First Nation, or sorry, saugeen.org. Pardon me. We've changed our emails a couple times now. So saugeen.org, if you need any inquiries, and you can do a general inquiry at saugeen.org as well.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Miigwech, thank you.
Miigwech. All right. Have a nice evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.